I was at work when my phone buzzed. Nothing unusual, until I saw the preview of message. It was from my wife, Emily. Just one cold sentence: I want a divorce. Speak to my lawyer. I froze in my chair, staring at those words as if they were written in a foreign language. Divorce? We hadn't argued in weeks. In fact, just yesterday, she kissed me goodbye on her way to yoga class like everything was fine. At first, my chest tightened. Panic tried to claw its way up my throat. 13 years of marriage, and this was how she ended it, through a text? Not even the courtesy of a face-to-face conversation? I scrolled up through our messages, rereading the last few days. She had sent me a grocery list on Monday, a heart emoji on Tuesday, and now today this. For a few minutes, I just sat there, phone in hand, my co-workers moving around me like I was invisible. My world had been cracked in half, but the office kept buzzing like nothing had happened. I could have begged. I could have called. I could have written a long, emotional reply. But in that moment, something in me hardened. Years of suspicion, little lies, and the way she had slowly grown distant, all of it aligned into sudden clarity. So instead, I typed just one word. One word that would tell her I wasn't broken, I wasn't begging, and I wasn't about to play her game. I pressed send. And I swear, just imagining her face when she read it gave me a strange, calm satisfaction. That single word I sent was, okay. No punctuation, no explanation. Just a calm acceptance that carried far more weight than a paragraph of pleading ever could. For a long while, she didn't answer. I imagined her staring at her phone, expecting me to explode with questions. Why? When? Who's your lawyer? Can we talk? But none of that came. Just my one word. And the silence after. I put my phone back on the desk and leaned into my chair. My heart was still pounding, but a strange kind of peace began to settle in. For years, I had felt like I was chasing her attention, planning dates she'd cancel, buying gifts that barely earned a smile, trying to be the man she once said she wanted. And for years, I felt her drifting further away, like I was the only one rowing our marriage while she watched from the shore. Now, with one message, she thought she could cut the rope and leave me stranded. But she didn't realize her words weren't breaking me. They were freeing me. An hour later, another text appeared. This time longer. That's it? Just okay. Don't you want to know what this is about? I stared at the screen and almost laughed. The woman who just tossed 13 years into the trash was now offended that I wasn't performing the role of a desperate husband. I didn't reply. By the time I drove home that evening, the house looked exactly the same. Her shoes by the door, her mug on the counter. But her presence was already gone. She wasn't waiting for me in the kitchen, wasn't calling out a hello. The silence of the house echoed louder than any words. I went upstairs, sat on the edge of the bed we once shared, and noticed something different. Her side of the closet was half empty. She had planned this. She had been packing while smiling at me like nothing was wrong. And then, as I sat there in the quiet, my phone lit up again. This time, it wasn't just a text. It was a call from an unknown number. I hesitated before answering. My gut already knew who it was. Mr. Carter, a man's voice asked, formal and clipped. This is Daniel Levine, representing your wife, Emily Carter. I assume you received her message. So it was true. She hadn't just been bluffing. She had a lawyer lined up, paperwork ready, and all I got was a text at work. Yes, I replied, keeping my voice calm. He went on about documents, property division, timelines. His tone was polite but detached, like I was just another case, file stacked on his desk. I let him speak, saying nothing until he finally asked, would you like to schedule a consultation, or should I send the initial papers directly? I thought of my one-word reply to Emily. Okay. That same feeling of strange calm filled me now. Send them, I said flatly, and ended the call. For the first time in years, I felt control shifting back into my hands. I went downstairs, poured myself a drink, and looked around the living room. Every detail screamed of her touch. The expensive curtains she insisted on, the designer couch I never liked, the little glass figurines she collected. But instead of sadness, I felt relief. It was like seeing a stage set after the actors had left. The illusion of our perfect marriage had crumbled. What was left wasn't mine anymore, and maybe it never had been. Later that night, I checked our shared bank account. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach twist. Large withdrawals, regular, hidden among grocery payments and utility bills. Thousands gone, slowly siphoned over months. Emily hadn't just been planning her exit emotionally. She'd been funding it. And just as that realization hit me, my phone buzzed again. This time it was her. Can we meet tomorrow? I think we need to talk face to face. Her message sat on my screen, glowing in the dark bedroom. After 13 years of marriage, now she suddenly wanted to meet face to face, after dropping the word divorce like a grenade in the middle of my workday. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I lay back and stared at the ceiling, replaying all the moments when I should have noticed this coming. The late nights at the office. The sudden trips to see friends. The way she started locking her phone and carrying it everywhere, even to the bathroom. Each one seemed small at the time, easy to dismiss. But together, they painted the picture I'd been avoiding. The withdrawals in the bank account only confirmed it. She hadn't just decided on divorce out of nowhere. She'd been building her escape plan brick by brick while smiling at me across the dinner table. And now she wanted a meeting? To do what? Soothe her guilt? Manipulate me into agreeing to whatever terms her lawyer wrote? I typed a simple reply. Where? The answer came instantly, like she had the location ready before I even asked. A cafe downtown. Neutral ground. Tomorrow at noon. I set my phone down, but sleep never came. My mind kept circling back to one thing. Why had she expected me to chase her? Was she so sure I'd fall apart without her that she thought she could script my reaction? By morning, my decision was clear. I would meet her, but not as the broken man she expected. I wasn't going to plead for answers. I wasn't going to ask what I did wrong. I wanted to look her in the eye and see the truth for myself. And maybe, just maybe, I'd let her know that one word, okay, wasn't surrender. It was the beginning of something she hadn't planned for. The cafe she chose was small and polished, the kind of place she loved, fresh flowers on the tables, soft music playing in the background. I arrived 10 minutes early and took a seat in the corner, back to the wall. I wanted to see her before she saw me. When Emily finally walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She wasn't dressed like my wife, the woman I'd shared bills and chores and quiet evenings with. She was dressed like someone single, someone free. Hair done, makeup flawless, wearing a bright dress I had never seen before. She spotted me and smiled faintly, like we were two acquaintances meeting for business. No hug, no hesitation. Just a cool, polite smile. Thank you for coming, she said, sliding into the chair across from me. I nodded. You asked. For a moment, silence stretched between us. She fiddled with her phone, then looked me dead in the eye. I didn't want to do this over text, she began, though that's exactly what she had done. I think it's clear our marriage hasn't been working for a long time. We've grown apart. We want different things. We. That word burned in my ears. She made it sound like this was mutual, as if I had been sitting around drafting divorce plans too. I stayed quiet, watching her squirm, a little under my gaze. I've already spoken with a lawyer, she continued. We can do this peacefully. No drama, no fighting. I want it to be fair. That's when I leaned forward slightly and said, calm as ever, fair. Her eyes flickered. She knew I had found the bank statements. She knew her version of fair was about to collapse. Emily, I said, my voice steady, if you wanted out, all you had to do was say so. But instead, you've been preparing for this behind my back. Tell me, was it just money you were hiding? Or was there someone else too? Her lips parted, but no words came out. She hadn't expected me to be this composed, this direct. And in that silence, I finally saw the truth in her eyes. Her eyes darted away, just for a second, but enough. I had my answer. There's someone else, I said quietly, not as a question, but as a statement. Emily shifted in her chair, pretending to be calm. That's not important right now. What matters is ending this cleanly. We both deserve to move on. We both deserve. She loved using that kind of language, like dressing betrayal in silk. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't make a scene. Instead, I stirred the coffee I hadn't touched and said, who is he? She flinched. It doesn't matter. It does to me. Another pause. Then she sighed, exasperated, as if I was the one being unreasonable. His name is Mark. He's someone who understands me. Someone who makes me feel alive again. Alive. That word hit like a slap. as if our years together had been some slow suffocation, and she was the victim crawling out for air. I nodded slowly. And while you were busy feeling alive with Mark, you were draining our account to fund your new life. Her face paled. She hadn't expected me to see the numbers. It's not like that. I cut her off. It's exactly like that. You text me for a divorce, line up a lawyer, pack your things, and think I'll just roll over? Emily, the only thing you miscalculated was me. For the first time since we sat down, she looked nervous. Really nervous. She reached for her water glass, but her hand trembled. What are you going to do? She asked. I leaned back, folded my arms, and let the silence hang before answering. Exactly what you told me to. Speak to my lawyer. Her mouth opened slightly, like she didn't understand what I'd just said. Your lawyer. I nodded. Yes. Mine. For years, I had let her lead. She picked the house, the furniture, the vacations. I told myself compromise was love. But sitting there in that cafe, watching her scramble for control, I realized compromise had only ever gone one way. You already have a lawyer? She asked, her voice tightening. I do now, I replied, pulling out a neat folder from my bag. And unlike you, I didn't need months of secret planning. I needed one night. The folder wasn't just for show. I had spent the whole previous evening calling an old friend from college, now a well-regarded family attorney. By morning, everything was in motion. Emily's confidence cracked. She was expecting the pleading husband, not the prepared one. Look, she said, softening her tone, this doesn't have to turn ugly. I don't want to fight you. I almost laughed. The woman who drained our accounts, who already had another man, wanted a peaceful divorce, as long as I agreed to her script. It won't be ugly, I said calmly. It'll just be fair. Truly fair. Her eyes narrowed. She knew exactly what I meant. The money she had siphoned, the assets she thought she could claim, suddenly they weren't hers to pocket anymore. The silence between us grew sharp, like glass ready to break. Finally, she stood up, clutching her purse. You'll regret this, she whispered, more to herself than to me. And then she walked out, heels clicking against the tiled floor, leaving her untouched coffee behind. I stayed seated, staring at that empty chair across from me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the one abandoned. I felt like the one in control. The next week was a blur of paperwork, phone calls, and quiet nights in an emptier house. My lawyer worked quickly, pulling bank statements, tracing transfers, documenting everything Emily had taken. It wasn't just a few withdrawals. It was tens of thousands, funneled into an account under her name. Vacations, clothes, business expenses that didn't exist. She had been bleeding us dry long before she sent that text. One evening, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the evidence. Every number on those pages was another betrayal. Yet instead of despair, I felt sharper, more awake than I had in years. Emily tried texting a few times. Short messages, we don't have to do this like enemies. Or, think about what's best for both of us. I ignored them all. Then one night, she showed up at the house unannounced. I heard her key in the lock, then the hesitation when it didn't turn. I had already changed the locks. Through the door, her voice wavered. Really, James? After everything we've been through? I didn't answer. I just stood on the other side, listening to her pound once, then twice, before the footsteps faded into the night. It struck me then how roles had reversed. For years, I had been the one waiting for her to come home, waiting for her affection, waiting for scraps of the woman I once knew. Now, she was the one locked out. The next morning, my lawyer called. His voice carried a satisfaction I hadn't heard before. James, you'll want to see this, he said. It seems Emily's new boyfriend, Mark, might not be who she thinks he is. And it changes everything. When I met my lawyer later that day, he slid a thin file across the desk. Inside were printouts, photos, and a background report. Mark, he said, tapping the folder, isn't exactly stable. 2 previous divorces, outstanding debts, and a history of gambling. He's already defaulted on loans. And the kicker, he filed for bankruptcy just last year. I stared at the papers, feeling a cold clarity. Emily had thrown away 13 years of marriage for a man who couldn't even keep his own life together. She probably thinks he's her escape, my lawyer added, leaning back. But give it a few months, and she'll realize she jumped from a safe ship into a sinking one. For the first time, I actually smiled. Not out of malice, but from the sheer irony. Emily had spent years calculating her exit, only to gamble everything on a man who was already drowning. That evening, I sat on the porch with a glass of whiskey, watching the sun dip below the trees. My phone buzzed again, this time a long message from Emily. It was emotional, almost desperate. I don't understand how you could be so cold. After everything we shared, after the life we built, it feels like you never loved me at all. I read it twice slowly, then set the phone down. The words felt hollow. If she had truly loved me, we wouldn't be here. Instead of replying, I poured another drink and let the silence speak for me. Because the truth was, I wasn't cold. I wasn't heartless. I was finally free. But I knew the story wasn't over yet. Emily wasn't the kind of woman to let go easily. And sure enough, 2 days later, she appeared again. This time, not with anger. Not with threats. But with tears. It was a Saturday morning when I opened the door and found Emily standing there. No bright dress, no polished confidence. Just jeans, a hoodie, and eyes red from crying. "James," she whispered, her voice cracking, "I made a mistake." I said nothing. I just let her stand there on the porch where she used to walk in with grocery bags or laughter. Now, she looked like a stranger. "He's not who I thought he was," she admitted, confirming what I already knew. "Mark, he lied to me. About everything. He's drowning in debt. He's not stable." I don't know what I was thinking. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "You were thinking about yourself. Like always." Her face crumpled. "Please, James, can we just go back? We can fix this. We don't have to throw away 13 years. That was the moment I realized the real power of my one-word reply. Okay. It had unsettled her more than anger ever could. It had shown her she wasn't in control anymore. I shook my head slowly. "Emily, you didn't throw away 13 years. You threw away every chance I gave you to be honest. And now, I don't owe you anything." She reached out as if to touch my arm, but I stepped back. "Goodbye, Emily." I closed the door before she could answer. On the other side, I heard a muffled sob, then footsteps retreating. When silence finally returned, I felt it, not grief, not rage, but something lighter. Peace. I poured myself a coffee, sat by the window, and watched the morning sun stretch across the quiet street. My life wasn't ending. It was just beginning.